Hi, my name is Mario Borja, and I want to share a little bit about myself. Hopefully, it can inspire someone who's interested in canoes. I've been very fortunate. I grew up with 7 brothers and a father who is a fisherman and a carpenter. And it's so natural for a fisherman and a carpenter to build the tools that would enhance his fishing via carpentry. So my father and the rest of his brothers and family as well were also carpenters and fishermen. So guess what? They built canoes. Well, I said I was very fortunate because I grew up with my brothers and sisters, but more fortunate in the sense that I grew up in my culture and my language. I didn't have to learn Chamorro as my second language. I was immersed in it. And part of that immersion is in all the things I learned about canoes. My father taught us about canoes. He said, Mario, if you want to build a canoe, you need wood. We looked for wood from a tree, but we couldn't find trees that were readily available. Then one day, after Typhoon Karen, there was an abundance of materials all over the neighborhood. My father said, why don't you go and get yourself some roofing tins and we'll build a canoe. Well, we did. We gathered some roofing tins, and when we got it to the house, he showed us what to do to prepare that roofing tin and conform it into a canoe. Wow! It took us about 2.5 hours. He had all the tools and all the equipment, and we started hammering and putting things together, 2x4s and nailing, and that was the quickest canoe building project we ever experienced. But it lasted a lifetime because now we're taking that to another generation and sharing it with our kids. It has also built inside me a passion to learn more about canoes and build canoes. Well, that passion lay dormant for a long time because of priorities, education, life goes on. Then one day in 1995, here in San Diego, I saw a canoe, a huge canoe. It was called the Hokulea, a Polynesian canoe, 62 feet in length. I was amazed. I've never seen any vessel that huge, 62 feet, about 40 feet mast. The sail was purple in color and it looked regal, majestic. I was impressed, but I was also curious. I kept asking myself, what is the connection between such a large canoe on our small islands? Well, in the Marianas, the archipelago, there are 15 islands. They're all small. They're spread between Guam and the northernmost island, 420 nautical miles. You would suspect that there would be large canoes. And indeed there was. In our research, we discovered that our ancestors built 6 models of canoes ranging in size and purpose. The smallest was the Galaidi, the very canoe that we built out of roofing tins. That's all we knew. You see, when we were going to school, we learned more about the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. We were taught more about the vessels of other countries than our very own vessels. But now, through research, we discovered that the Sakman was the largest and the smallest was the Galaidi. I'll tell you, we didn't even know how to spell the word Sakman. But in short order, we started learning more, and we discovered a drawing called the Anson drawing. In the archives of the British Archives, we found this drawing, and we knew it was pure Chamorro because it has the wording Islas Ladrones. Now, how many islands in the whole Pacific have been given the name Islas Ladrones, Island of Thieves, Guam? Well, it dates it and it puts that picture to Guam. Guess what? We took that, and with the scaling data that's available, we built models. We built models so we can understand the tooling, the craftsmanship, and build confidence. We wanted to build our confidence, and then we built models, and this is one model that we built, the 8-foot model. It became the inspiration to build the larger canoe, the 40-foot canoe that George Anson destroyed back in 1742. And I'll tell you what, that destruction of the canoe by burning was the best thing that has happened to our canoe, because from it came out a drawing, and more importantly, came out with a documentation of what the canoe was from the eyes of another seaman, a gentleman named George Anson who commandeered the ship called the Centurion, the HMS Centurion, who happened to be in Guam, in Tinian. He saw the canoe. He was amazed at its velocity at 20 knots, a speed he's never heard of, and a speed that was not in the standards of Great Britain and Europe. And he knew that there was something special about the canoe, so he had his draftsman prepare this drawing called the Anson drawing. But what he wrote in his ship's log has given us the passion in our hearts to continue the work that we're doing. You know, he wrote this. He said, "These Indians are no ways defective in understanding, for their flying proa in particular in ages past have been the only vessels used by them, are so singular and extraordinary an invention that it would do honor to any nation, however dexterous and acute." He continues and says, "For if we consider the aptitude of this flying proa to the navigation of all these islands, which laying them upon the same meridian, or the limits of the trade winds, it would require that these vessels made use of in passing from one island to the other to be particularly fitted for sailing with the wind upon the beam. Or if we examine the uncommon simplicity and the ingenuity of its fabric and contrivance, or the extraordinary velocity with which it moves, we shall in each of these articles find the canoe worthy of our admiration and a place amongst the deserving a place amongst the mechanical productions of the most civilized nations where arts and sciences have most eminently flourished." This was one sentence that was stuck in his book, The Voyage Around the World. There's one sentence that really summarized who we are as Chamorros. From that one sentence, I know that we were canoe builders, we were sailors, and we were navigators, and that we were simplistic in our approach to solving problems. We took advantage of the wind, and we took advantage of the design that we could come up with to get from Guam to the other islands and back. Returning back to the island was important, but it is through their simplicity of solving problems and that has excited me inside. Because you know what? I'm a very simplistic person as well, and I don't need the rigors of technology to understand this. Our ancestors didn't even have all that, but they were able to solve and build a canoe that was worthy of the admiration of a great nation like Great Britain. I am humble as I speak to you because I am just taking what our ancestors showed us and duplicating it. They're the ones who have to be honored for their ingenuity. Well, that's where my passion is coming from. It's coming from them. My father would say, "Mario, if you want to pursue a project, you need three things working for you." And as a carpenter, I would think that he meant a hammer, a saw, and some nails. No, he wasn't talking about those things. He was talking about something intangible. He said you have to have one, the cabeza. You have to understand what's going on. You have to understand as much as you can about your project. Then you have to have the kanay, your hands, so that you can take those ideas and make it happen. Then you have to have the corazon, the heart, so that you can fuel your passion to continue that to fruition. I said, okay. But you know what? Sometimes when we start a project, we have just two working for us. But with this canoe, we have the cabeza, the understanding, the capability of our hands, many hands, and the passion of the heart. And that's what's keeping us going. Today in this celebration of cultures and language, we know that it's important. It's our sacred duty. As I was immersed in my culture and language as growing up as a kid in Guam, I see it as my obligation to give back to the children. I don't have any children, so the best thing I can do was to share my language and culture with the community. I know, and I firmly believe this, that culture begets language and language begets culture, that what we do today to enhance our culture will go on and enhance our language. But what we do what we don't do, what we fail to do with our language will also fail us in our culture. So there is where our sacred duty lies. We need to do this together. We cannot do it by Mario alone or Tony alone. We have to do it together as a community, as a people. So I hope that those of you who are listening can find some inspiration in the canoe that we built. The canoe is in Guam right now, and it's really the work from the hands of our ancestors. Thank God for what they've given us. They've given us a glimpse into who they were and what we were centuries ago. Thank you for listening. I appreciate sharing the story.